Alright guys, so we've known for quite some time that the power creep in Fae has been out of control, but recently it feels like they've just stepped it up to the next level. Ever since that Christmas banner, the power creep has been unbelievable in Fire Emblem Heroes, so just like trying to keep up with all this has been quite a tall task. However, one particular part of power creep, which I think it benefits a lot of people because it involves the passive skills, and being able to inherit those on your older units and make them that much stronger is definitely a good thing. But in that same regard, it's getting to the point where passive power creep has gotten so outrageous that if you're not keeping up with the passives anymore, if you're not summoning for skill fodder on recent units, it's going to start to create a huge disparity between yourself and people that are. So I just wanted to throw some attention to that. On the recent Bride banner that we just got the trailer for the other night, we got this new skill here on the Duo Sharena, the Attack and Speed Excel skill. Now, I believe the prerequisite for this is going to be the Clash effect. So Clash family of skills, Attack and Speed Clash 3, I assume is the prerequisite for this. It has a very similar icon, and also just the effect that it does is very reminiscent of Clash skills. So what this skill does is if the unit or foe initiates combat after moving to a different space, you get attack and speed up 6, and also a further attack and speed up X during combat, where X is the number of spaces from starting to ending position of whoever initiated combat with a max of 4. Obviously, if you're moving 4 spaces, there are quite a few ways that you could do that. You can do it by warping with a skill like Guidance 4 or Soaring Guidance, or even Soaring Echo. You can do it by just having +1 movement, such as with a bunch of effects like this Duo Sharena, for example, has +1 movement built in. Or if you're getting support +1 movement from a unit like Duo Eye Green or whoever. So there's a lot of ways that you would be able to move 4 spaces to get the maximum of this. Then also, if you initiate combat, you're reducing damage from the enemy's attacks by X times 3. As we've already shown, X is the number of spaces you've moved. So if you move the maximum 4 spaces, that's just 12 points of damage reduction. And this is non-pierceable damage reduction too, by the way. It's reducing damage from their attacks. It's not a percentage-based DR effect. This is a flat number-based DR effect. So this is not negated by stuff like Special Spiral 4, Lagoo's Friend, No Quarter, and so on and so forth. So you're actually not able to just shut this off. It's just unmitigated 12 points of DR. And then it just gets even further. So if the foe's attack triggers foe's special, then you further reduce damage dealt to unit by X times 3 once again. So potentially 24 points of non-pierceable DR out of a freaking A-slot passive. Like, are you kidding me, man? You could run this on the attuned Sheeta, by the way, if you wanted to, because she's getting a lot of non-pierceable DR from her B skill. It's already going to amount to around 24 points, because she gets 6 per each. It's like the highest total bonus on all of her stats or an ally in 2 spaces stats. So assuming that's +6 to everything, you can get 24 points of non-pierceable DR on attuned Sheeta. With this, you could also tune that up to another 24. You can 48 points of non-pierceable DR. You think that's enough? Like, there used to be a line where passive skills would not give non-pierceable DR, but we have long since passed that point with another skill we're going to talk about in a moment. But I just wanted to go in order here. Let's take a look at a bunch of other passives that have gotten upgrades of this ilk. I mean, not quite on this level, but just similar stuff. So, of course, Attack and Speed Clash 3, which I believe is the prerequisite for this. It just gives you stats based on how many movements you've used for the turn. And then the level 4 version is if unit or foe initiates combat after moving to a different space, you get a bonus to Attack and Speed equal to X plus 6, where X is the number of spaces moved, and then 6 is just a contingency plan where you're getting +6 as a flat bonus so it can compete with other skills. So, a possible max of +10 once again, and then if X is over 2, then you neutralize penalties to attack and speed. That could be a good or bad thing. It's bad if your unit has a unity effect, or if you're unity stacking with Legendary Robin. So, in that case, you would not want to neutralize penalties, because they can just turn into higher stats for you. But neutralizing penalties isn't that bad of an effect. There are a lot of penalties going around right now, like Legendary Camilla and Hortensia that just debuff you out of nowhere wherever you are on the map. So this is still useful, but is it as useful as 24 points of damage reduction? I would say no. No, it's not. So Attack and Speed Clash 4 has completely been tossed to the wayside pretty much for Attack and Speed XL now. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of other ones. So Special Spiral 4, this skill, when this came out, we were like in awe of how powerful this was. This was like next level. So deals +5 damage when you trigger your special. If you trigger a special, you completely nullify enemies' damage reduction effects from non-special skills. That is percentage-based damage reduction, as we can see here. This has nothing to do with flat number-based damage reduction, as we see over here. But still, at the time, I mean, there really weren't that many effects that do this when Special Spiral 4 came out. So, like, having percentage-based damage reduction nullification was already quite good at the time. This excludes AoE specials, unfortunately. So if you pop like a Blazing Wind or a Blazing Thunder or whatever, the opponent is still going to have their percentage-based damage reduction there, which kind of hurts this skill a little bit, but not that much. And then also, after you trigger your special in combat, you just get -2 cooldown after combat. So it allows you to re-up your special over and over. For a very long time, this was, or I don't want to say a very long time, but for quite some time, this was like the go-to bread and butter B skill for your nuking units. Now we have Lagoo's Friend, which essentially is just Special Spiral 5, except it's better because it does like 50 other things. So, inflicts attack -5 on the foe. If your max special cooldown count value is less than or equal to 3, and your attack can trigger your special, or if the foe's attack can trigger their special, then you reduce the, or rather, if the foe's attack can trigger your special. So, like, that would be in the case of Godlike Reflexes or something of that nature, where your special is giving you non-pierceable DR, and you can just activate it. Then you're also reducing the percentage of units' non-special DR by half. So if you have a percentage-based damage reduction effect on your weapon or on one of your other passives, it's going to be cut in half. So, for example, assuming your weapon had a dodge-based damage reduction effect, where it's 40% of the difference between speed stats times 4. So, like, that would only be cut down to a 20% damage reduction at that point. So you are losing a bit of pierceable damage reduction, but then you regain it in spades by having non-pierceable here. So then it also reduces damage from the enemy's attack by 20% of the greater of units' defensive res. It's insane that they allowed this to scale off of res as well, because tome units are allowed to use Lagoo's Friend. So for them, of course, they would rather check off res. So like 20% non-pierceable DR based on defense or res. Again, this is like something we've never seen before on passives, which is now all of a sudden just being shoehorned onto all of these passives. So you can see already like where we're starting to go in the power creep level. It's just getting out of hand. And then it neutralizes damage reduction on the enemies as well. And also, during combat, if the foe's attack can trigger unit special, then when they trigger their special, your next attack deals 20% of the greater of unit's defensive res. So you're also getting flat damage there. And then you also reduce their pierceable damage reduction effects to 0. So, like, if the enemies have if the enemies have pierceable DR, you just shut it off whenever you activate this. So it's basically just Special Spiral 4, but better in every conceivable way, which is, I mean, Lagoo's Friend should just be a tier 5 skill. We have some more examples. I don't want to, like, spend too much time on this because I think you guys get the idea. But Life and Death 4, I mean, this skill, when it came out, it wasn't, like, the craziest because you didn't really want to cut your defense and res unless you were specifically running an AoE. And what are we doing now? We're just running AoEs on seemingly every unit. Duo-Eye Green, there's the Attune Sonya, there's, like, so many characters are benefiting from AoEs right now. So what do? They see how popular that is. And also, like, I actually should have used Still Water for the check instead, because Still Water allows you to win res checks for other passives, such as the Gold Border Ploy skills, which is why a lot of people have been running those, or weapon effects like the Duo Satyr, where she can end an enemy's action if she has more res than them. So, like, having high res, visible res for your checks is very important right now. And they saw that people were doing that. They saw a lot of people just running Still Water and Life and Death, so they were like, why don't we tune things up a notch. So we have Verge of Death now, which gives you attack and speed up 8 and inflicts defense and res -8. So you're taking even worse of a defense and res detriment there, and it's for a very minor +1 point to attack and speed. Not the craziest, right? Like, it seems like the trade-off is actually worse than the benefit here. But then you also gain this effect down here. So at the start of player phase or enemy phase, you neutralize panic and any penalties to your attack and speed that take effect on the unit at that time. So penalties to attack and speed during then would be like from chill skills or gold border ploy skills or weapon effects and things like that. Hortensia is definitely the biggest example because wherever you may be on the map, Hortensia will clap you with a panic and then also a speed and res -7. So being able to nullify that is pretty juicy, it's pretty effective, and it can allow you to maintain some of your stats without having to worry about just getting demolished. So that was the thought process behind this, and I think it's a pretty worthy effect, but I also don't think it's worthy enough to warrant this being an upgrade to Life and Death 4. This is one of those few examples where if you have Life and Death 4, it's not really the biggest deal in the world to upgrade to this. You're not really gaining that crazy of a bonus. But on the rest of these, I mean, it's like you either keep up with this passive power creep or else you're going to be left in the dust. So, bonus doubler 4, this skill really did not have much time to shine. It's only on one unit, I think. Or at least it only was on one unit. It was only on the Halloween Chimera for a while. We just recently got it on Mozu later, but that was after the fact of them power creeping it. So, kind of a moot point. But what I'm trying to say here is that Chimera came out with this, so it was already a pretty niche skill. And then what it does is if the bonus is active on you or an ally in 2 spaces, then you just reflect those bonuses back as extra bonuses, and then you also gain an additional +4 to those stats as well. So, assuming all stats up 6, you're getting all stats up 10 out of having bonus doubler 4. Pretty good, right? I mean, also the fact that it checks off of allies bonuses means that you wouldn't suffer the same penalties as bonus doubler 3, where they could just run a lull skill or have a dull skill and they could just turn off your bonuses. That's not going to happen with bonus doubler 4. So it's a pretty cheeky way to maintain your stats. But the folks over at Insys were like, that's not good enough. Why don't we just toss bonus doubler onto this as well? So it's the same effect. You're not getting the Omni +4. So it can't stack up to a +10 to all stats on distant bonus doubler. However, it still checks off of ally bonuses, so you can bypass the lull or dull detriment of bonus doubler 4, or bonus doubler 3 rather, and then you're still keeping the distant counter now, so it just gives you so much more efficiency when it comes to sacred seals and things like that. You wouldn't have to run the distant counter melee seal. You could just go ahead and run an actual stat boosting seal to get more numbers, or you could just run something else, I don't know, like the bonus doubler seal itself, if you're already running bonus doubler as an ace skill. So yeah, just a completely upgraded version of bonus doubler 4. There's no reason to run bonus doubler 4 over this, I don't think. Okay, and then we move on to the Swift Sparrow family of skills, which, I mean, there's so many variants of Swift Sparrow that for some reason they thought, like, okay, initiating and getting attack up 6 and speed up 7, that's pretty cool, but why don't we change it up a bit? Let's also give you some 30% non-pierce or 30% pierceable DR when you attack. So, getting some protection there. They thought that still wasn't a good enough effect. So, how about let's also gain special acceleration? This one's pretty good. I just don't like the fact that this is player phase only. I feel like this one at least probably could have been dual phase, but it is what it is. And then it all culminated into Flared Sparrow over here, which you look at what this does compared to these other ones. Like, Remote Sparrow is cool, but 30% pierceable DR isn't like that insane. And then getting the acceleration on hit, it's cool, but again, you could still run pledge skills or other effects to gain the special acceleration anyway. But what are you running that's doing this, right? So, Flared Sparrow inflicts the flame tiles on the enemies. You're doing 7 pre-combat damage, and then a further 7 combat damage if, like, after the enemy's turn, when they start, if they're on a flame tile, they take 7 damage. Or if you're attacking a unit that's already on a flame tile, they take 14 points of damage. So just an outrageous amount of free damage you're getting there. You're also changing terrain if the enemies are using a defensive-based terrain, like Divine Vein. What is the one that Ratatoskr had? Divine Vein Wood or something? Whatever it's called. It might have been like Roots. I can't remember, but you can bypass that, or the stone tiles, which are very prominent and pretty much the best defensive terrain you can set up. You just override that with your flame tiles, and then you're still getting the attack and speed up 7. And it also hinders enemies' movement. So, like, ranged enemies have a hard time passing through the flame tiles. Like, this just does so many more things than all of these other ones that I don't see a point in running any of them over Flared Sparrow. There's just not really a reason to, unless there are inheritance limitations in place that prevent you from getting it. So that's our little trip down power creep lane in terms of passive power creep at the very least. There are, of course, more examples that I could have shown, but the gist I'm trying to get at is that power creep in this game, especially the passive power creep, has gotten to the level where you kind of have to keep up with it to some degree now. Because if you're not, then playing Summoner Duels or Aether Raids is going to be a really rough thing to do. So there you guys go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And this is your boy Tacho signing out. So take care, fellas. And I'll catch y'all again on the flip side.